We as humans are our worst inner critics. We have a natural human tendency to just be very quick to harshness and judgment and criticism about ourselves. We definitely wouldn't treat others that way as we treat ourselves most of the time. And it's a hard shift to get used to. But that's what mindfulness is. Hi everybody, it's Dr. Pasha Fick over from Brain Body Doc, and today I'm truly honored to be here on Queen Talks discussing the very important topic of mindfulness and mindfulness meditation. So I want to start off with discussing what is mindfulness, and then I want to get into some questions that you guys posted in response to the poll discussing what types of things you want to know about mindfulness, what questions there are, any confusions, and things like that. But I think it's really important to start off with what is the topic that we're really talking about, because mindfulness can have a lot of different meanings to a lot of different people, and even socially on the internet, where have you. There's just a lot going on in terms of how people are talking about mindfulness. So for our purpose, we're going to be defining mindfulness as a moment-to-moment, non-judgmental awareness of what is. So breaking that down a little bit, it just means that when we're being mindful, we are acting as an observer to ourselves. So if that's a little bit confusing, an example of this would be if we are sad, or if we are angry, or if we're feeling pain in our body, let's say physical pain anywhere. What we're doing is we are stepping back out of our body almost, and we're just observing it. If we're feeling angry, we're just sitting back and saying, okay, so this is what anger feels like. Or if we're really torn up and sad about something, we're saying, okay, this is what sadness feels like. So if you can see the relation here, it's basically taking yourself out of the situation and being mindful or being an observer to what is going on. And the key part of what I wanted to point out about mindfulness is the non-judgmental part. We as humans are our worst inner critics. We have a natural human tendency to just be very quick to harshness and judgment and criticism about ourselves. We definitely wouldn't treat others that way as we treat ourselves most of the time. And it's a hard shift to get used to. But that's what mindfulness is. We're able to step back from our thoughts, our feelings, our physical sensations, and observe them without any judgment, without any criticism, without being harsh on ourselves. So that's what mindfulness is in a nutshell. There's a lot of ways to practice it. You know, I talk about mindfulness meditation a lot over on my page, but it all incorporates into the same thing, is developing the skill to just be in the present moment, non-judgmentally. So that's an overview of what mindfulness is. So I'm going to get into some questions here really quickly. And the first one is, can mindfulness boost immune system functioning? Short answer, research is showing that it does. So research shows that mindfulness can actually improve your cognitive function. So it can help you think more clearly, provide mental clarity. It can actually lower your blood pressure if you practice mindfulness on a consistent basis. And yes, all of that actually improves your immune function and system as a byproduct. So research is increasingly showing that mindfulness has benefits that go beyond just our brains, which is really cool. Next question is, can mindfulness help with stress and overthinking and overanalyzing? Yes. So the purpose of mindfulness, and I want to talk about this a little bit as a segue here, is not to feel happy or to make yourself distracted or to take away your problems, as I think that's a very common misconception that sometimes the media or different sources point out. It's not meant to necessarily make you feel good or bad, but it's meant to just highlight what's there and help you deal with it, if that makes sense. So mindfulness actually brings a sense of uncomfortableness sometimes, which I think a lot of people don't expect. But that is the very place that growth happens. Because if you keep resisting things, they're going to persist. So a saying that my supervisor once told me that stuck with me is, what you resist shall persist. So basically, mindfulness is helping us connect with our inner selves and helping us relate to our thoughts, our emotions, our feelings, all of these uncomfortable things in a different way. It's helping us relate to them in a more strategical, in a more clarified clarity, down to what is it that I'm actually feeling and how am I actually going to deal with it kind of way, rather than just immediately reacting to it. When we're stressed, that's a huge response that just comes out right away. We either yell or we cry, or there's just this bodily reaction that happens. And when we practice mindfulness, when we learn to practice mindfulness, we actually reduce that. We dial down the intensity of whatever it is that we're feeling, and we're able to get some distance. We're able to diffuse ourselves a little bit. And from that, we're able to think about what we're going to do next. So stress, as a byproduct of that, gets lowered increasingly because you're able to get some block, get some distance between the immediate thing that happened that bothered you or made you feel uncomfortable, and then what you're going to do about it. So the same goes for overthinking. When we start getting in a feedback loop of overthinking in our minds, our brain or our minds have hooked us. And once we get hooked, it's really hard to get unhooked. Think of a fishing line, right? So once a fish gets hooked, it's really difficult for it to come off on its own. So we want to prevent that. And when we practice mindfulness, when we practice that moment-to-moment, non-judgmental awareness of what is, we are able to prevent ourselves from getting hooked from our own minds. And that's really important, and that's really key, because at the end of the day, we don't want our minds to be walking us on a leash, right? We want ourselves to be able to walk our minds on a leash, speaking metaphorically here. But it really helps when we're able to gain that observer perspective and just step back from ourselves and say, hey, what is it that I'm feeling right now? What can I make from this? And what can I take from this? And one of the things that's really helped in my own practice with mindfulness, because it's difficult to practice being mindful, right off the bat, is having this mantra that I'm about to tell you guys and just saying it repeatedly throughout the day. It's come if you will, stay if you will, leave if you will. So I'm going to say that again. Come if you will, stay if you will, leave if you will. Try saying that to yourself throughout the day when you have something uncomfortable come up, or not, or just something that's minor irritating, or anything that's a little bit challenging for you. Just say that to yourself and see what a difference it makes as you keep repeating that and as you keep making a habit of saying that. So mindfulness can come in little small packets such as that, just saying something to yourself to help you ground yourself, to help you stay in the present moment. And it can also be something like having a meditation practice that you do that helps you stay mindful in your daily life. So there's a lot of variety in it. And I think the last thing that I want to discuss here is basically, how do I practice mindfulness and what happens when I get stuck or when I get caught up in doing it perfectly? And I want to say that that's totally okay and common to be feeling that way. There's this conception that we have to have the perfect atmosphere, pillows, candles, everything perfect for us to be mindful or for us to practice mindful meditation, but that's not true. We can do this anywhere. We can do this while we're cooking. We can do this while we're cleaning, in the car, on a walk. Practicing mindfulness does not require having the perfect or ideal setup. You surely can, but it doesn't require it. And once you allow yourself the freedom to say, hey, I have this little small corner of my room right now. I can sit and I can just breathe and I can be with myself and connect to myself and watch my thoughts and my feelings and my physical sensations. That's mindfulness. You don't need anything else, nothing more, nothing less. If you like to have a practice where you do a whole setup, that's also great. But the best thing about mindfulness is that we can learn this and we can do this without having to have anything but ourselves. We just need ourselves. We just need to commit to ourselves in practicing mindfulness, and that's all there is to it. So I could talk on about this forever. Mindfulness is something that I practice and preach. It's my go-to. It is really incredible for a lot of conditions like anxiety, depression, chronic pain, a lot of different things. But it is just something I think that is a valuable investment in yourself if you practice it and if you learn it. It's a skill, just like anything with our muscles. If you work them out, the more you work them out, the more they get stronger. Same with your brain. If you practice mindfulness, it's actually working out your brain and you will get stronger in it. I'll end on this piece. The research is showing that 20 minutes of mindfulness or mindfulness meditation per day has enough power to actually change and alter the chemistry inside of your brain and your body. That is fascinating. And by chemistry, it means a lot of the stress hormones, cortisol, adrenaline that are flooding in our brains and then flooding in our bodies and causing the fight or flight response, causing us to panic, causing us to feel anxiety, feel depressed. When we practice mindfulness, when we practice just being with ourselves and our feelings or our sensations, allowing it to be as it is, and then working through it with mental clarity, it changes your body. So that's where I'll end off. If you guys have any other questions or you want to just chat about it more or talk about mindfulness in any other capacity, feel free to give me a message or head over to my page. Also, I'm so down always to have conversations about mindfulness. As I said, it's one of my passions. And again, very thankful to Queen Talks for having me on and talking about this topic. It's so important for mental health, and I'm really happy it's actually coming out a lot more these days. So I hope everybody stays safe and stays well, and I hope we get to chat again soon.